Music is a powerful force. It can be a source of inspiration, motivation, or relaxation. Being able to listen to our favorite pieces whenever we want is a true pleasure. But how is music captured, preserved, and shared? Please join us as we explore the music recording process. Whether you are pursuing a career as a musician, composer, music teacher, or audio technician, or are simply a music fan, understanding the recording process can enhance your appreciation for the music and how it is captured on media. Creating a musical recording is a complex and multifaceted process, and it can also be a lot of fun. As we examine the recording process, we will be exploring 5 key areas: forming a musical ensemble and developing your repertoire, acquiring funding, the pre-production process of creating a production team and planning and coordinating the many pieces of the process, the production process where the actual music is performed and captured on media, and the post-production process where the musical pieces are mixed, mastered, and packaged for distribution. This video provides an overview of the recording process as it explores the creation of Eastern Standard's first album. It reflects the collaborative effort involving the trio, Eastern Standard, composers, producers, and the audio technicians from the Department of Communications Media at IUP. The starting point is forming an ensemble that shares similar interests and goals in music. For Eastern Standard, there was a common interest in chamber music and a desire to educate and encourage younger musicians.
I would say that chamber music is any grouping of musicians that don't require a conductor. Generally, it's a smaller ensemble, and oftentimes the music that is performed is intended to be performed in a smaller space. Historically, that's where the idea of chamber music came from, was music that would literally be performed in a chamber or salon or smaller room to entertain guests.
The members of the trio, Dr. Heidi Lucas and Dr. Zach Collins of the IUP Department of Music and Dr. Jacob Ertl from Nazareth College in Rochester, New York, recognized that it is not just the solo performer, but also their interaction that is critical.
So chamber music is a hybrid between playing in an ensemble and playing as a soloist. And so we, while there's 3 members in our group, we each play in a soloistic fashion. So when we play, it's our job to be expressive at the same time that we are supporting the other members of the ensemble.
So our group is a little bit non-traditional, mostly because of the instrumentation. The idea of playing a trio of piano, horn, and tuba is not very common, and there's not a lot of repertoire for that ensemble. And so we thought it'd be kind of fun to get together and see what we could do with it.
Being atypical meant the available repertoire was limited. Music libraries, online services, and colleagues are all valuable sources of material. Musicians may also compose their own material or work with composers and commission works that are written expressly for their ensemble. For their first album, Eastern Standard was able to commission several composers to write works for their ensemble.
We were really fortunate in the commissioning process. So in the basically 3 years that we've been together as a group, I think we've been able to commission somewhere around 12 to 14 pieces of music, which is a lot. And we've really been lucky in that we've been able to identify composers who are really excited about what we're doing and willing to work with us.
Recording an album requires a range of resources, as does the creation of an educational video. As they begin the project, Eastern Standard realized the value of reaching out to the Communications Media Department for their audio and video support. As the focus was on recording the album but also on producing a video component, the connection proved valuable.
The Communications Media Department had been working with the Department of Music here at IUP for a few years. We actually had been recording a lot of these student ensembles as well as faculty recitals to create a capture of the different performances that they had completed over the years. And we ended up creating 2 different television shows from that. We had a spotlight on the arts as well as an evening with the arts.
Funding was also needed. National, state, and local arts councils can be a source of support. For those in education, your schools may have special funding available. Particular attention must be paid to the requirements of the grant process and criteria.
So the grant process is multi-pronged. The first step is to find what we call an RFP, which is a request for proposals. This is essentially the statement that the granting organization is going to put forth to let everyone know that they have money to offer. This is also the place where they outline the specific guidelines that those people who are applying for the grant need to follow, and also what they need in order to be eligible for the grant. So our first step here was to look for RFPs on campus, and in this particular case, we looked in-house, and there were a couple of grant opportunities through the university, so we thought that that might be the best way to go.
For Eastern Standard, the collaboration with Communications Media positioned them well to pursue funding from the University Senate. Grants often favor creative and unique proposals. In this case, the interdisciplinary collaboration of Eastern Standard and IUP's Department of Communications Media provided this innovative dimension.
Eastern Standard provided the concept for us, and we really were just there to help with the technical background. So from the recording process, building the rig, to capturing the video, we were the tech support and the tech providers.
The grant provided support for the commissioning of new works, funding for an audio and video recording crew, and provisions for the packaging and distribution of the album and the educational video.
Our first step was approaching composers that we knew or that we had connections with in some way, so knew secondhand or third hand. And as we've gone along, we've branched out and actually reached out to composers that we may not have connections with. So we're casting a wider net as we go, but I think it's a little easier to do that now that we have a couple of albums under our belt and we show that we are committed to this commissioning process.
And so we had to give the composers enough lead time, because for some of them it takes 3 or 6 months and they're working on other projects and they can't do it. They can't drop everything and write a piece for us. They've got other things they have to take care of.
Typically, I get the first inquiry from a performer or a group asking if I have the time available to do a piece. And then there's a negotiation of fee. If what the financial, what I need money-wise is what they can afford money-wise. And then after that, once all of that is organized, then there's a play back and forth of what they're looking for and what I'm able to give them.
Once basic arrangements have been made with the composer, the degree of collaboration can be variable.
I like it to be a collaborative process. Just because if an ensemble is more engaged in a piece of music, they're going to play it more, they're going to promote it more, they're going to do things like record it, and it's a win-win for everybody because it not only promotes me and my music, but it promotes the ensemble as well.
With the basic song list set, attention now focuses on the actual recording process. This requires coordination of the space, equipment, musicians, and technicians.
We decided to record the album on campus because we are aware of what wonderful resources we have right here at IUP, particularly in the communications department. We knew that if we could tap into the fantastic students and technology and all of the techniques that the students are learning, that we would really be able to get a good product. And it also would be easier for us because we could just do things right here, basically on our home base.
The need to also capture video created an additional challenge to the production planning and execution.
Choosing a space became somewhat of a fun task. All of the rooms in Cogswell are fantastic acoustically. The problem is where the windows are placed. And since we were recording from early morning until late evening, we had changes in light throughout the day, depending on where the windows were. So we had to pay a lot of attention to which room we actually ended up choosing for the final recording in order to give us the most controlled environment light-wise.
Another key piece of the process is identifying your audio producer. It is the producer who provides the organization and documentation so critical to a production.
It's so crucial to have a producer and get good solid notes. Sometimes I've been in productions where we've had a producer and a separate person just to take notes. And that's each person can do that how they like. But if you have to make sure that all your notes are sufficient and that you're making marks both on some sort of note-taking, paper, but also on the score itself, that things get indicated correctly.
Not only does the producer document what was recorded, but they also provide observations that will help guide the editing process.
And then I would notate on there, yes or no, this was good or that was good, and things that I remember right on the spot. Or if the performer said to me, yeah, my high note in measure 27 was awesome, I'll make a note. So-and-so said this was awesome. So that when I go back to, when you get to the editing stage, you can make sure, hey, even if everything around is good, if I can use that measure where they thought they were awesome, great.
In addition to having a music producer, the video aspect of this project also needed coordination.
One of our goals in the project was to create a documentary video to go along with this. So I worked as the video producer, and I was able to coordinate a crew of 3 students who were there the whole entire time to record everything that the musicians were doing on video. So we had 3 different camera angles plus a GoPro in the piano, and really just kind of took a lot of fun creative shots because we were able to capture so many different angles with the number of times that the musicians went through to record the perfect piece.
A key piece of the pre-production process is developing a clear plan and schedule for the actual recording process. Part of this challenge is providing time for the musicians to prepare. Working with 2 different production aspects created its own set of challenges that could be resolved by proper scheduling and planning ahead.
Once we find the dates and everything, we have everybody on board, then the sessions are planned usually according to which pieces are sort of more or less taxing for the brass players, because they have to save themselves as far as their lips and muscles go, more so than a pianist would, so I leave it up to them a little bit.
Coordinating quality video and audio were also essential to this particular recording project.
At that point, the crew we had was mostly used to recording and making music videos and stuff for full performances. So to take a recording session and try to make it into a music video ended up being way more difficult than any of us had anticipated. Yeah, so in pre-production, we figured out all the mics we needed, and then we knew that this was going to be like a fluid thing. We weren't going to be able to stage any of the shots. So we came in with way more cameras than we needed. We had multiple GoPros recording the entire time, and at least, I think, 3 cameras on wheels. And as we recorded basically the whole time, hoping to put together a performance after the fact.
So whenever we're trying to capture the video along with the audio, we ran into a couple different issues, mainly because of lighting. So we had to change our original location because the lighting in that room just wasn't what we needed it to be. But that put us into a room with much higher ceilings with not a lot of visual interest.
With the preparation done, recording begins. As the musicians warm up, the audio and technical crews make final adjustments. With performers, audio, and cameras cued, the process begins.
No, it definitely took some time for us to settle in and to get comfortable with the process of recording. Recording is really different from performing live. because it's so nitpicky. And so I think just for us to get a comfort level, it took a little bit of time each day.
And so, yeah, we have a good time, we joke around, you know. The recording process can be kind of, like I said, tedious and stressful because you want it to be right and everybody's trying and really focused the whole time. So it's nice to have those lighthearted moments in between things to lighten the mood a little bit.
But challenges do occur and the entire team needs to respond.
When we did run into problems, we had to do a few different retakes, and that was something that, as the video producer, I always had to be cognizant of.
We did end up changing a few things after day one, like in the middle. What happened was there was too much going on behind the stage, or behind the scenes, you know, between me and Bruce. And we figured we might as well film some of that. So we got some footage of that, and then I think the most important thing was miking up Bruce. And also we added an intercom so he could talk to them. That kind of changed everything. Because before he would have to get up, walk out there, and give them notes. Afterwards, we mic'd him up and added a speaker out to the main recording hall and then back into the machine so we record him. It's just, we never thought about that before, and because we weren't recording in a traditional recording studio, that's just some of the other things that needed added in after the fact.
So yeah, there's different challenges that come up, whether it's the brass players needing a break to sort of regain their muscle strength in their embouchure, or like today a piano string kind of went out of tune, so we had to deal with that as well. So those little things happen.
The main rooms that we had available to us for the project were in the School of Music, but there is a good deal of outside noise that you can hear from any of those spaces. Also, if there was weather, you can easily hear rain, wind, those kinds of things. So we had to be, you know, that was a little tricky for us, as well as the room acoustics themselves.
When the recording sessions ended, the work now shifted to post-production, mixing the audio and cataloging and preparing the video.
When it was all said and done, we ended up with over 1 terabyte of footage between all of the audio takes as well as the video takes, and separating that into each separate camera as well as each separate day part. The undertaking as far as file management went was really just a daunting task, but luckily we had all the notes that we needed in order to keep everything right where it needed to be, so we didn't lose any of our files.
The notes provided by the audio producer would be a critical part of this process.
I would document the time where each track started and how far we would go. I would make notes on, was this a full take or was this a partial take? Were we trying to get some specific measures? And I would be very specific.
Post-production side, it's a completely different thing from the recording process because the material's there, you can't fix too much of it. It's just piecing it together like a puzzle, and I enjoy that.
For the team producing the documentary, it meant a lot of going through footage and trying to find just what we needed to tell the appropriate story. We had a lot of footage of the musicians from the recording process, but we were telling more than just that recording process those few days. We had a lot of backstory that needed to be developed as well.
Following the final mixes of the songs, the album had to be packaged for distribution.
The artwork was done from students in the communications media department, and they gave us several ideas that we chose what we liked, and we gave them some feedback, and they altered it and came up with the design that we have for that.
Prior to us doing audio and video recording, we had to set up an entire physical package just for the songs that they were doing. So we had a couple graphics people, Tam and Courtney, do 3 different designs for logo ideas for them. When we were thinking about the design, we really wanted to make sure that all 3 instruments were represented in it, and we provided them with the 3 drafts, and from there they had a chance to review them, talk about them. We had a meeting, and they ended up picking the one that they did and really liked it. For the actual CD packaging, we had to do an insert for this cover, which on the back had bios for each professor. And then we also had to make a design for the disc itself, and then the back cover with all the song listings.
Because of the scope of the project, both the Communications Media Department and the music faculty had a different understanding of the recording process following the release of the album. Each project is unique and requires an individual set of skills and techniques.
Looking back on the whole process, there were a lot of things that I learned as a video producer, especially about how musicians record an album. And there was a lot that I learned about how to put together our student crew who might not have music knowledge and still keep them entertained after standing through days of recording.
I think I really enjoy the challenge of putting together an album. You know, the experience of actually recording an album is very different from what I ever imagined that it would be. And it's certainly, in a lot of ways, more difficult than I ever had anticipated. But it's been a wonderful challenge for me individually, and I think also for us as a group. And it's been a great opportunity for us as a group to kind of come together, work together, and bond over this shared project. And it's brought us a lot closer together, which is really the main reason why we do chamber music anyway. It's kind of that intimacy of working closely with other collaborators and feeling like we are making decisions together about, you know, the music that we are creating and pretty much anything else that we're doing.
So I produced a little music video. I kind of took snippets of recording, like video recordings from the actual day, some interview footage that we had of them, and I put it together to one of the songs that I liked the most. And it's just a quick little thing, but it kind of establishes the vibe of this entire video. It shows a little piece of what you're going to get throughout the entire thing. And the editing process in general, I had to, you know, sift through a bunch of footage to pick the shots that I did, but what I made ended with a quick little shot of all of them pointing at each other, because during that interview, no one wanted to talk first, and I thought it was a real genuine moment to kind of end what I put together, and it really just shows them as a group and what their energy is, and I think that's really cool.
When recording and releasing an album, it's important to make sure you have the right team, funding, a clear direction, and a plan so that you can make the most of the resources around you.